With us now, we have political scientist Antonio Contreras to help us weigh in on the latest developments. Magandang umaga sa inyo, Professor.
Magandang umaga, Gretchen.
Okay, so again, that piece of news has set down the facts. No, two more impeachment complaints against the president were attempted to be filed against the president yesterday. One from Makabayan Bloc, another from the group of Mike Defensor and Chavit Singson and Ferdy Topacio. Yet the House SecGen was not present, and the two groups were saying that their complaints were somehow blocked. Looking at the strength of the first impeachment complaint, do you share that observation that the first complaint was a weak one designed to thwart any impeachment attempt against the president? How do you read all of these movements?
Well, of course, first of all, let us just agree that the impeachment is the citizen's right. We have a right to do that, to hold the president accountable. And so the issue of whether it has grounds is a different matter for us to discuss. Now, on the fact that the first complaint is a weak complaint, that remains to be seen. Although I may agree with that statement, that is for the Justice Committee to determine, the Justice Committee of the House. Now, in terms of the two complaints not being received, that is where I'm kind of uncomfortable because, even if the Secretary General was not there, they just have to receive it. The office, what was referred to is the office of the Secretary General. So even if the Secretary General is not there, it should have been received and stamped, at the very least, So I don't know why. Because if we're going to do that, then they were going to set a precedent. All the OSG has to do is to just be absent and not be in her office. And then that's it.
Yun nga po yung kinakatwiran nitong mga grupo na according to the rules, we complied already. Basta binigay namin sa opisina, it doesn't have to be the Secretary General herself. No? So we have yet to see what's the real deal here. But three impeachment complaints have been filed against the President. Do you think there is more vigor going in that direction? Parang wala pa ho dito sa Vice Presidente, no?
Well, the Vice President is going to, in February 6 is the date to watch in terms of the Vice President because there's a one-year bar. Now, in terms of kung meron pang susunod na mga complaints sa Presidente, well, hindi naman padamihan yan. It's not how many you file. It's basically on the rule of whether they have grounds, and number two, whether there's a bar if placed on the second and the third because of the first complaint. And right now, I don't see that happening kasi the first complaint it was just referred to the speaker, and the second and the third complaint, while they were not received by Monday, OSG Garafil would be in the office, so that's going to be received. And if it's going to be transmitted to the speaker, you see what will set the initiation. From what I know is that it's not whether it is received by the office of the Secretary General, whether it's received by the office of the Speaker. It has to go to the plenary first. It has to be part of the order of business. And it has to be the plenary who will refer it to the Justice Committee. So marami pang tatakbuhin ito. So yung Justice Committee, pag na-refer na doon, and then that's the time that the initiation is perfected. So that's where you now count the clock. So if I think that there's just too much overreaction right now on whether the first was filed to effectively bar the second and the third.
No, you're right to point out na February 6 pa, gugulong dahil sa one-year bar. I guess siguro the message is kumalma muna, no? Kasi hindi pa naman, parang simula pa lang ito. We have yet to see how these complaints will be dealt with, how they will actually be consolidated. But how do you think that will go? Do you think magkakaroon ho ng problema dito, especially with the Supreme Court not yet responding to the MR on its ruling on the Vice President's impeachment complaint? Kasi pag nakakausap namin, sabi nila, susundan lang. Kumbaga parang, hindi lang uupuan ng SecGen, hindi sila mag-archive because in the first ruling of the SC, they deemed that any action already initiates that process.
Well, I think, Gretchen, I think the House will be now more careful in how to deal with a complaint against the President so that hindi na maulit yung nangyari sa complaint kay Vice President. Two things. Yung kay Vice President, dahil meron ng desisyon at may motion for reconsideration, if the Supreme Court issues reconsideration, for example, before February 6, all the Senate has to do is to continue the trial. That's it. But if it is denied, then all the complainants will have to do is to refile the complaint on February 6. That's for the for the Vice President. And it opens up other complaints to also be filed. Pag ma-deny yung MR. Pag ma-deny yung MR, pwede nang magsimula sa February 6 at pwede pang dumagdag ang mga complainants. But ang deeper, yung sa presidente naman, yung sabi ko, I think mag-ingat na sila ngayon na hindi na maulit yung nangyaring inupuan yung 3 complaints at hanggang sa nagkaroon ng problema sa constitutionality. But I think the deeper problem here, Gretchen, is that we are now entering a period where we might have 2 impeachment complaints being heard for the top 2 officials of the land, the President and the Vice President. I don't know whether this is going to be good for the country. I know impeachment is a right of the citizen to hold our officials accountable. But I am now uncomfortable with the fact that you might end up being consumed by this. When in fact there are other things that we need to look into, the corruption accusations and the flood control, the challenges of a country that we need to deal with economically. You know, I think this is something that might use up a lot of time. Imagine the Senate has lots of things to do and then you have 2 complaints. So saan pa nila ilalagay ang trabaho nilang ordinaryo kung matutuloy ito? Imagine, dalawang complaint ang dinidig sa House, magkakaroon pa yan ng hearing sa Justice Committee, iakyat pa yan sa Senate. Ano pang oras ang i-devote nila sa kanilang trabaho? So yun ang dito. Kaya kailangan nating tingnan, ano ba yung grounds? Kasi dito, sa pagsusuri ko, yung grounds kasi for the President, we have talked a lot about the grounds for the Vice President, so I'm not going to touch on that anymore. But for the President, my analysis is that these are things, although I respect the right of those who filed, these are things that the President actually, it's more of guilt by association. For example, yung allocable na sinasabi. Ang allocable is a planning ledger. Many people misunderstand it. No money has yet been released. So when you're going to use the allocable as the basis, allocable is hindi pa WH. It takes a leap of faith to believe that the President directly ordered DPWH of the allocable system. Yung unprogrammed allocation naman, na sinasabi na appropriation, this is Congress doing it. You know, it is Congress. So it's going to be a bit odd that you're going to hold the President accountable for things that the Congress did or failed to do. Parang sila yung mag-impeach, sila din yung mag-judge. Sila nga yung, unang-una, sila yung na-involve sa allocable dahil pumunta sa kanila yung ganung klase. Sila yung mga humihingi ng allocation sa DPWH. At pagdating naman sa unprogrammed appropriation, sila din naman ang nag-approve noon. And then the thing is, what the impeachment is being saying is that the President was on top of all of this. But
on-program appropriations actually ballooned under the time of President Marcos.
Yes,
at nasa jurisdiction po yun ng executive to release that on-program appropriations.
You have to understand that on-program, there is no determination yet that on-program appropriation right now is unconstitutional. We don't have that yet right now. On-program appropriation, even if it ballooned, is part of the General Appropriations Act approved by Congress. Now, if you're faulting the President for not vetoing it, then that's a different matter. But it is just a constitutional duty. Wala pa naman nagsasabi ng unprogrammed appropriation unconstitutional. So what is the culpable violation of the Constitution there? So I think what we're going to now see is that the impeachment trial, people would like it to be also the venue for determining the constitutionality of something. But that is not the job of the impeachment court.
Yes.
To determine the constitutionality of an program. It should be the Supreme Court who should be doing that.
So para po sa inyo, medyo flimsy po itong
Yes.
impeachment complaints against the President. How about the Vice President? Do you think that has a chance of proceeding? Or
we have talked
magkokontrapelo
about-
po ito
Well,
because of impeachment fatigue of some sorts?
The difference is that in the case of the Vice President, the cases that are being to which she was being implicated or accused are clear crimes. Like when you are spending wrongly the public funds, okay, which is the confidential funds, and then you are publicly threatening the President, the life of the Speaker, in openly, That's already a crime. So may connection agad. Ito sa presidente, they're saying that meron siyang ginawa dahil yung allocable, pinayagan niya. Eh, hindi pa nga natin alam kung ang allocable ay illegal o illegal.
Marami pang
Na yung
katanungan na dapat
unprogrammed
masagot.
appropriation, pinayagan niya. Eh, hindi pa nga natin alam kung unconstitutional yon. So, you are not trying to use the impeachment process as a venue to litigate the constitutionality of something. And then, doon mo rin sasabihin na nabayad niya ang constitution. That is not the way it should work. It must be first be established that the crime is there and the impeachable official has committed that crime. Here, yung crime hindi pa nga alam eh. Kasi wala pang determination ang korte o wala pa naman determination ng Supreme Court na ang UA ay unconstitutional.
Let's take a closer look at the impeachment complaints against the president, no? Beyond the legalities. The pro-Duterte group and the Makabayan Bloc were the ones who filed these complaints. From your perspective, is that as far as the meeting of minds will go? Or is there a possibility here that there will be some sort of a tactical alliance between the two groups?
Well, of course, there is always the fear that there is a history of tactical alliance, remember. The militant left was part of the Duterte administration at the beginning, right? You have to recall that there are members of the militant left who were appointed members of the cabinet. So it's very easy for people to suspect that these two are working together. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because many things have happened already. So what you are seeing, however, is the politics of vengeance. The politics of holding people not necessarily accountable because of what they did, but because of political agenda. That's what I think. Although the impeachment is a political process, it could be a partisan, it could be weaponized in a partisan way. But I think we should also bear in mind the fact that what is really the motivation behind this? Is it really to correct? Is it really to hold the president accountable because of what he has done? Or is it really to push certain agenda that would benefit one party or the other? Or is it really just para manggulo? You know, and I think if it is the latter, I think I would like to appeal to people to really be rational and look into this, and it includes us, media, and the commentators, to really make sure that we are governed by reason and contributing less to the noise. Because right now, I'm afraid that we will be consumed by this for the next months. If kung sabay ito, may imagine mo, ano ang gagawin ng Senado? Sabay na hearing, pang umaga si Presidente, pang hapon si Vice Presidente. Ano pang gagawin nila?
Where does this put the side of the Marcoses and the Pinks, though? Does this put them in the same uncomfortable corner?
Well, I think the Pinks and the Yellows are a bit, clear now. They're on the sidelines. I think they will be very active in the Duterte impeachment. But in the case of the Marcos, I don't see any movement on their part. Okay, di ba kasi parang ano to? Ang nangyari ngayon, as a resulta din to ng mga rallies noon, saan to yung alam mo yung I think it's the Luneta crowd, the left, the militant left, and then
yun
the other one who went
doon nga
to
po yung division.
Sila yung pumupunta dito sa impeachment ni Pangulong Marcos, pero yung naandun sa EDSA parang wala ngayon sa picture. I think that's and so that goes to my point na ang impeachment tuloy nagiging very partisan. Nagiging partisan weapon na siya. Ginagamit na siyang weapon to settle partisan scores. Which is kind of not good.
Instead of an instrument of accountability. Nagagamit lang for political noise. But former Senator Sonny Trillanes has gone another way. He has gone to the Office of the Ombudsman to file plunder and graft charges against the Vice President. Yesterday, we had him on the show. He was citing that he had evidence on billions of funds disallowed by COA. Meron din po sa DepEd. Meron po nung time niya as Davao City Mayor. What role could that case or before the Ombudsman play here? Could it somehow strengthen the impeachment complaint against the Vice President? Could it take out the Vice President from running in 2028? Gaano kahalaga po tignan yon yung movement na yon?
I think it's going to be mutually reinforcing, but these are two different venues. The Ombudsman complaint is a criminal case, And while the impeachment process is a numbers process, it's a numbers game. So yung ginawa ni former Senator Trillanes is of course welcome, because when you go to the ombudsman, it's longer, the process is longer, but it's a game of evidence. It's basically the rules of court that's going to be applying more there. In the case of the impeachment process, it's going to be a political theater. It's going to be political showdown. I don't know whether the numbers game has changed already in the Senate, whether realignments have happened, but we don't know. So hindi magko-compete yung dalawang yan. Sa tingin ko makakatulong pa nga sa kaso, sa impeachment, yung kaso ni Senator Trillanes.
But he himself has said na this remains untested whether an impeachable official could face a criminal case against him or her. Parang walang nagsasabi sa konstitusyon na bawal kasuhan yung vice president, but naging practice na hindi kasuhan. So kung sakasakali, ito po ay magiging una ho.
Well, the ombudsman can investigate. Iba kasi yung pagpa-file ng case. The complaint by Senator Lacson to the ombudsman is a signal for the ombudsman to do its own investigation. So pwede mo na malusutan yan, kasi pwede mo namang gawin yung investigasyon na, mag-gather ka na ng evidence, and then saka mo na lang siya sampa ng kaso pag hindi na siya presidente. So maybe siguro in readiness of vice president. So siguro magko-complement yan pag sakaling ma-impeach si Sara Duterte. Then right there and then pwedeng isampa na siya ng kaso kung mayroong probable cause. Ganun ang binagbabawal lang naman ng Constitution, Gretch, is to file a case in court. And that is not even clear, because from my reading is it's only the president who is, you couldn't file a complaint against the president. There
As immunity from suit.
But the Constitution is silent on the vice president.
But do you think this is a stronger route for those who want to hold the vice president accountable? Ito sa ombudsman.
It is necessary, I think. It is necessary to provide some objective basis for taking a person, holding them accountable. Kasi pag sa impeachment nga kasi, quasi-judicial yung process, the rules of evidence of court is not that much followed. It's and the determination of guilt or innocence is based on political alliances. Then at least the kind of evidence, the quality of the investigation, the level of evidence required, and the process, the robustness, the rigor of the process, in the ombudsman will be different. It will provide some sense of a balance.
Okay, now you already touched on this, no? The numbers game over at the Senate. We had Senator Franklin Drilon yesterday here on the show. At sabi po niya that the minority making that move to release its own report ahead of the Blue Ribbon Committee report is a signal. If they do get the numbers to pass that in plenary, then there might be a leadership change. What are you seeing here in the Senate over what's been happening, the standoff between the party of Senator Ping Lacson and the party of Senator Amy Marcos, Bato, Bongo, Rodante, Marcoleta?
Well, I agree to some extent on the statement of former Senator Drilon about the fact that the so-called minority report is simply a form of disrespect. It is out of order. But what I disagree is that it's going to determine the future of the alignments. This is a minority report coming from the minority itself. And in fact, I question its legitimacy. Bakit ka magma-minority report? Wala pa nga majority report. Para magkakaroon ka ng dissenting opinion, wala pa nga ang opinion ang pagbobotohan dyan, yung report ng committee. If you're going to look at the process in the Senate, there's a committee, the Blue Ribbon Committee. It's going to come up with a report, and that is going to be voted upon. There is no minority report that is going to be calendared, because that's not normal in the Senate process. So I think all of this is for show. Right now, of the 9 members of the minority, only 6 signed. So it's
kulang pa rin.
And you have to understand that in order for the impeachment for the realignment, there has to be 13. members of the Senate who is going to vote out Senator Soto. So
Pero
magmamalayo
mukhang
pa
hindi
yung
ho
anim
mahirap
para maging
makuha
labing
yung,
tatlo.
yung mga numero na yan because sabi nga din ni Senator De Leon yesterday, si Alan Peter Cayetano is in the minority, Pia Cayetano is in the majority, and of course, if it were her brother that's going to be Senate President, imposible naman na hindi na hindi siya lumipat doon. Pero do you think that the Senate leadership is in danger? I mean, they put Senator Ping Lacson back to head the Blue Ribbon Committee, right? After removing him, they put him back there.
Well, everything is always possible in the Senate. Those are 24 individual republics with one absent right now. Senator Bato, na hindi natin nakikita kung nasaan. So, but they can do what they want to do provided that they have the numbers. But I wish they don't do that now. Ang dami ng gulong nangyayari sa bansa natin. Para ang dami nating panahon para magawa ng mga ganyan and dami-dami natin kailangang bigyan ng solusyon. So, I think, and people are already, getting impatient. The people I'm talking to right now in my everyday, conversations are also pissed. They're saying what is happening to the political system. It's a lot of noise. When in fact he should have his reason. Because there are so many things that are being misinterpreted right now. For example, we are spending a lot of time demonizing what allocables are. But if we're going to just use reason, allocable is a planning ledger. When you're doing planning and budgeting, that's what you do. You itemize what is possible amounts that will be allocated per item or per district. And then, yung allocable, yan yung parang magiging ballpark figure mo. And then, iba kasi yan, hindi yan nare-release. Ang dapat pinagkakaabalahan natin, paano ba ginastos yung inallocate? That is where corruption comes. We're spending so much time demonizing labels. Nauna yung insertion, na parang pag nag-insert ka ng funds, masama ka na. Until we pointed out that insertion is just a form of an amendment. Ang dapat isipin mo ngayon, kinikbak ba yung insertion na yan? Ngayon, wala ng insertion, allocable naman yun ang pinagdidiskitahan. At ngayon, pinagdidiskitahan ang program appropriation na hanggang sa ngayon, wala pa namang ruling ng Supreme Court na unconstitutional. And it is something that is have always been there, and there are triggers to it. It's almost like a contingency fund, and then of course you and I know, Gretz, when you are planning a project, you always have a contingency fund, right?
Correct.
So it is something that people should explain more. But unfortunately, people who should be doing that, like congressmen and senators, are contributing to the confusion. Kami naman mga political scientists who studying it, we need to speak up more. So because these are things that, if only properly explained, can minimize the toxicity in the air.
Are you referring to Congressman Leandro Leviste?
Well, yeah. Basically, I'm kind of fond of him already. He seems every day either he's in press conference or he's being interviewed. As if and saying the same thing over and over again. So I don't know. Maybe it's something that bakit ba? Ang pinakita niya planning documents eh.
At nilabas niya na ho yung mga numero, pero kulang pa ho dyan. Yung putting it in its proper
parang
context.
ang nilabas yung draft nung NEP. Ano yun? Evidence na ba yun ng corruption? Dahil merong inilagay si Cabral na 2 bilyon sa distrito mo? Ang evidence ng corruption doon, paano ginaso? Napapunta pa sa 2 bilyon? Yung 2 billion ba yun talaga nakuha mo? At yun ba'y ginastos sama-sama? Dapat yun ang pinagtututukan. Pero right now, people are so consumed that because this congressman has 3 billion earmark, corrupt na siya. That is a big leap.
I think people are looking for stability and somebody to anchor on with all of this political noise. Thank you for helping us sift through that political noise and making it loud and clear
it's
for
my
us.
pleasure.
Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, your time and insight, political scientist Antonio Contreras. Thank you for coming here on Morning Matters today.